Welcome to Irregular Odes on YouTube. This is Marziya Mohammadali speaking at the Islamophobia and the War on Civil Liberties Forum that was put on the 15th of October 2014 by the Socialist Alternative in Perth, Western Australia. I hope you enjoy this video. Please like, share, follow and subscribe.
So when I was first approached with talking at this particular meeting, I was thinking about what do I say? How do I condense the experiences of the entire community down to a short talk? And I thought about, well, I don't really want to condense that entire community experience because just like anything, Islam is not a monolithic thing. It's not a building that you can describe. So I'm going to talk more about my own experiences and hope that's a reflection on what's going on and get some ideas about what's happening. I want to start off with a quick thing of two stories. My first experience is when I moved to Australia. I moved to Australia in 2005 and the week following the London bombings. So you can imagine not exactly the best time to move to a foreign country on your own and be very visible, especially if you happened to share a particular religion with people who were being targeted. In my first 24 hours here, I was called a terrorist, which, not surprising, but kind of intense if you've not been in the country for an entire day and you have that. Told the whole, go back to where you came from, sworn at, and I was wondering, why am I here? That in itself is an indication that there's always been this sort of underlying current of fear of the other. This current wave of Islamophobia isn't new. It's something that's been there and it rises at different times. It's fanned by politicians' comments, by the media, and it's something that I've experienced on and off. On the other hand, I also had a very different kind of experience again within my first couple of weeks here. Was that I was on a train and I sat down next to an Aboriginal man who everyone was avoiding, and he turned and looked at me and he noticed that I'm wearing a headscarf, and he immediately went, "You and me, we're friends. No one likes us. We're friends." And that idea of solidarity with the First Nations people was so strong at that point. It's something I don't think I'll ever forget. It's something that I draw on when I think about, why am I here, what am I doing, and looking for those notions of solidarity. So I wanted these two events essentially to frame what I'm going to talk about. At this point in time, the sentiment's really strong. We've experienced stories of women being bashed on trains, as Sam mentioned, women's headscarves being pulled off, children being afraid to wear their school uniforms on a bus, and even my own personal experience where I've experienced attacks, one verbal, one physical. In all these cases, the common factor is that people who are being targeted are the so-called easy targets of women and children, and the very visible targets. So as a Muslim woman, you can understand at this point, I feel quite concerned. I try not to fall into the idea of being afraid because I think that in itself is what people want, and fall into that idea of Islamophobia causing people to be scared. But when you think about the fact that it's all the visible targets and the people who are being targeted are the ones who are either less likely to fight back or more likely to be intimidated for whatever reason, you think about how Islamophobia plays on people's internal fears. It plays on the idea of misogyny and further suppression of women, and that in itself is it's something that I think we need to address when we're thinking about how do we tackle this issue. Situation hasn't been helped by comments from our lovely politicians. The idea of it's okay to say something, you have a right to be a bigot, does that sound familiar?
Yeah.
So that in itself has really caused a lot of harm in our communities, I believe, because it's given people a free license to say things and claim that they have the right to say that, and to fan flames that lead to other attacks, more physical attacks. The sensationalism that we've seen in the media, particularly with the incidents that happened over East, where people were arrested and a sword was taken that was supposedly going to behead someone until it was found out that it was plastic. That particular incident really stands out because it shows that the people who were targeted were actually a member of a minority group themselves. They are the ones who are being targeted in Iraq and Syria, who, the government is claiming to rush in and save, but they're targeting them on their own soil. It's also presenting them as a target for the Islamophobes. So it's dividing the community internally, the Muslim community, as well as presenting different groups for attack. And this is all very concerning, especially for members of those minority groups, because you're thinking, well, you can't necessarily rely on people that you would normally rely on to also have your back. Why do I believe this is happening now? Why do I think there's an upcurrent? To me, it just seems obvious that there needs to be a distraction. There needs to be a distraction from the bigger issues that are going on. And in that sense, there's always going to be a community, a smaller community, a marginalized community that is going to be presented as the other to be afraid of. And at this point, it happens to be Muslims. We are being distracted from the bigger issues at hand. For example, the idea that we might just go to war. From what's happening with the budget, that it's going to affect everyone. So essentially, Islamophobia doesn't just affect Muslims. It affects pretty much everyone because it causes them to react to the wrong things. To use a title from an article I read today, I'm exhausted. As a Muslim, I am exhausted. I'm exhausted for having to constantly be told to apologize for things I haven't done. I am tired of being painted as a victim, and this is part of what I want to do to change the narrative, to not allow myself to be a victim and to actually, sit here and talk about what I think about what's going on. And I don't want to be a distraction anymore. I do not want to be used as someone's excuse to run into another country. I don't want to be someone's excuse to act in a negative way. I don't want to be someone's excuse to be a bigot, essentially. And I would like to change the narrative. So going back to my original couple of stories, I want to change the narrative from that first experience that I had, which was so negative, to the second experience, where it was much more positive, where there's much more solidarity between groups, not just within the Muslim community, but with the Muslim community and all the other groups that have come out to support us. So that's really what I'm thinking about, is taking a stand and hoping to engage in solidarity with the larger community so we can actually get a more positive narrative started.
Thank you for watching. Please like, share and subscribe and follow, and we'll see you next time. Assalamu alaikum.